Good day, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you for joining this webinar session. As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic is a humanitarian crisis which poses huge challenges to citizens, to businesses, and to government all over the world. So because this impact is felt by small-scale businesses, large firms, and everybody is feeling this impact. And so as we discovered, there have been various measures that have been introduced to prevent and contain and manage this disease. But quick adaptability is also required by service providers, and we are service providers to combat the devastating effect of this plague and save lives as much as possible. Usually in times like this, like we might have seen globally, the traditional hospitals cannot cope with the fast and high demand by the suspected patients and the large-scale surge call. So because of this, we see care sites are being converted from arenas, stadium, convention centers, hotels. We have to quickly adapt and make makeshift and alternate care centers. And so because of this, HVAC engineers must be aware of the challenges and how to address them within the shortest delivery time. It is also sacrosanct that we must comply with the relevant building codes and standards all the time. So in this webinar session, our speakers will be highlighting the challenges that are faced by the HVAC professionals in curating solutions for alternate care facilities and possible ways for us to surmount them. Before we start the webinar proper, I would just like to intimate us with some housekeeping. So basically, all my mics are muted automatically already. So we're just listening during the course of this webinar. And should you have any question related to this discourse, kindly use the question icon or the question segment. You will see the question mark. Type your questions and they will be attended to at the end of the webinar on priority basis as well as first ask basis. So as the speakers are giving their session, if you have a question, kindly just type your questions. Please do not use the chat pane for questions because questions they will not be attended to. So I would quickly introduce our presenters, our speakers to us. Today we'll be having two presenters. The first is Engineer Babatunde Badru. Engineer Badru is the MD CEO of Sanlatuna Limited. He graduated in 1974 from Yaba College of Technology, Mechanical Engineering, and also earned a professional qualification from the Council of Engineering UK. He is also a member of Nigerian Society of Engineers, and he is licensed by the Council of Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria. He joined SCOA IAD in 1974. And he practiced HVAC contracting for about 16 years. He has experience of various applications and designs, and then he left the company as the department head of applied products. He also started his company, Sanlatuna Limited, in 1990, and the company has been one of the foremost leading indigenous companies in Nigeria, specializing in design, build, and application engineering. He has attended various ASHRAE training and special courses. Engineer Badru is also a member of ASHRAE. He has led the formation of ASHRAE Nigeria chapter in 2009, and he was of primordial importance, and he was the president from 2009 to 2012. He's won the highest delegate trophy 3 times consecutively at the RAL. He's also served as the RP chair, honors and award chair, BOG member at various times. And he has also served as a member of developing economy ad hoc committee set up by the society. He's going to be our first speaker, and our second speaker is going to be Engineer Marcus Oshindero, who has a postgraduate studies in mechanical engineering from the University of Lagos here in Nigeria, and he has been a force to reckon with in the HVAC industry in Nigeria. He's been practicing for about 2.5 decades now. He started his career as an applied sales engineer with Train. Then he was also the design sales manager with LG Electronics and full-fledged contractor with a host of reputable brands. He has also served ASHRAE Nigeria in different capabilities in the past decade and is currently the serving president of ASHRAE Nigeria chapter. He has been giving selfless non-profit work of helping the upcoming young engineers and members to grow and develop in West Africa and Central African countries. Basically, he is the executive director of Lockworks Limited, He's also the chairman of Crown Bros Global Services Limited, and at the same time is the MDC of Mao Engineering Services Limited. So it is my pleasure and singular honor to introduce to us our first speaker, Engineer Babatunde Badru, who is going to be taking the first session. Engineer Badru, thank you. Over to you.
Switch over.
Engineer Badru, we can see you and we can see your screen now. Yes.
I'm not seeing my screen.
Don't worry, Engineer Badru, we can see your screen.
But I'm not seeing. I need to see my screen.
What do you see on your screen at the moment, sir?
Your pictures. I'm seeing your pictures.
Your screen, just go to the top, and then you see where you have the play button, and then just share your screen.
Share the screen. The screen itself. I should press the monitor.
Play button. Yes.
No, it's not coming up. Okay, yeah, I'm good to go.
Good. Yes.
Yeah, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody, friends and family. ASHRAE Nigeria chapter is presenting to you COVID-19 alternate care facility challenges. This topic is necessary because of the time in which we all are, and the traditional hospitals cannot cope with the rate at which patients are being infected and demanding attendance by the hospital or medical services. And this is, at this present time, ability to make sure we deliver alternative care facilities is very, very crucial within the shortest possible time and the right quality. Yeah, the two documents are seen on the screen presently are the latest document released by the society. And look at the document on the left, and that's the document that is just released on the 15th, just updated 15th of April. And it serves as our present guidance to what is happening presently in the globe. And the document 2 is the present ASHRAE position document on infectious aerosols. This has been just updated April 14, 2020, and to expire April 14, 2023. Our presentations have been taken from these two documents, and we are going to be able to give you some overview of the documents and employ every professional to go through this document and familiarize themselves with it so that we can be able to attend to the urgent need of the community. The objective of this presentation is 1, overview of COVID-19 pandemic. 2, key planning and criteria for alternate care facilities, ACF.
Sorry, Engineer Badru. We can't see your screen.
You can't see the screen?
Yes. You need to just go to the yes. No, yes.
I'm only seeing you.
Never mind, we can see you.
But I need the screen.
Oh, you don't see your own screen?
No.
You have to manage the site shot and read because people need to see a screen.
Okay, introduction. I can't see the screen. Very unfortunate. I can't see Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Engineer Badri, yes.
Okay, fine. Thank you so much. As I've said, the key objective of these presentations, one is overview of COVID-19 pandemic. Two, key planning and criteria for alternative care facilities, conversion of existing structure into alternative care facilities, recommendations and resources. What is coronavirus? Novel coronavirus is a large family of viruses that can cause illness ranging from common cold to more severe diseases. SARS-CoV-2 is the virus that caused COVID-19, and COVID-19 is the disease caused by SARS-CoV-2 virus. WHO usually define all these viruses and give them their respective names. Now the viruses is being spread in different forms. Looking at the image in your front on the right, you will see an infected patient trying to sneeze or cough. And as this is done, the droplets coming out of him from his upper respiratory organ is highly infectious. And that's why distancing code is given to everybody. That's about 6 feet before you can see the thing dropping down. And also you can also contact this virus by touching infected surfaces, objects, and also taking the same finger or hands into your face or your mouth. The virus is likely for about 2 days and viable aerosolized for about 3 hours. As I've said, coughing and sneezing, you can get the virus. Also, by talking and breathing at close range, it's possible to contract the virus. SARS-CoV-2 transmission appears to be very comparative with high influenza, but higher at the rate at which it goes around far than that of influenza. Approximately 25% of cases are transmitted while being asymptomatic within the first 24 to 48 hours. Most contagious when symptomatic, and they are usually admitted to hospital. These populations frequently become severe cases. 15% of infected require oxygen for intervention. Airborne Infection Isolation Rooms, AIR, in the existing hospitals are not sufficient to meet this heavy surge of COVID-19 patients. So there is need for alternative care facility to meet small scale as well as large scale surge. Non-acute and acute patients are defined as follows. Asymptomatic people are those who carry the active virus in their body but never develop any symptoms. Symptomatic are people who have been infected and are incubating the virus but don't show symptoms. Very mildly symptomatic are people who feel a little bit unwell from a COVID-19 infection but continue to come in close contact with others. All these three are grouped under non-acute. Basically, the symptomatic acute people, fully infectious patients with full symptoms of dry cough, sneezing, fever with the range of temperature higher than 100.4/38 degrees Celsius. Recently, ASHRAE has issued major 2 statements on this transmission of the virus. It's been nice confirmed that this is becoming acceptable as an airborne virus. And the challenges is that with air conditioning in operations, we can control this exposure. So it's also advisable that you should not put off all the AC in order to want it to reduce transmission. So be familiar with this statement, very important for the operation of the air conditioning system in order to help in controlling of the virus. The main topic of the day. Alternate care facilities is defined as sites temporarily converted from healthcare use during the public health emergency to reduce burden on hospitals and establish medical facilities. CDC recommendation and guidelines must be followed very closely. During the course of implementing the alternate care facility, all licensing and compliance requirements must be met. Indoor environmental conditions must be controlled and monitored as per temperature, relative humidity, 40 to 60 RH, which is now recommended, relative pressure, filtration system, and etc. Coordination between health facility managers and HVAC engineers is very, very key. CDC also recommended that airborne infections isolation rules must be used only for COVID patients undergoing aerosol generating procedure, and the examples of those are listed below. Structures that can be converted into temporary alternative care facilities are stadium, convention center, store center, school dormitories, hotel, parking garages, arenas, tents, new standing alone modular units, and other large buildings. Health facility manager's role. The main steps to be taken by health facility operator or manager are narrated below. You must be able to provide immediately as-built drawings as well as operational data of HVAC system and other utilities. Also be able to verify performance of existing airborne infection isolation rooms, verified performance of emergency department HVAC system, secure all HEPA filter units and keep them safe. Understand such temporary patient segregation plan and deploy accordingly. Ensure that the critical equipment are powered by the emergency power supply at all times in the case of a failure. The HVAC engineer's role is also very, very important. And those primary functions are the engineer must be able to advise on the HVAC system, the configuration of the system, modifications of the systems to support the segregation of suspected and confirmed patients, controlled indoor air movements, ventilation, making sure that the space is designed in accordance with required air changes. Indoor humidity control, as we said, is very crucial. And this, we said 40 to 60% relative humidity is now recommended. Room pressurization, filtration to give actual indoor air quality, and the collaboration with clinicians and other professionals are very important. implementation process. Identification of potential sites are done by the clients and donors of whatever it is. A non-profit organization try to acquire the sites and pass it over to the team. The team that works on this kind of applications are supposed to be a consortium, and they need to carry out site assessment. And these are the guidelines of the items they must put in behind their mind when they are doing the site assessment. They must be aware of the number of patients, the proximity near to the hospital, utilities requirements, air filtration, air handling capability, safety for emergency response and ingress. And basically, they must provide ambulances. I mean, the client has to provide ambulances and adequate parking availability. Most importantly, the engineers must familiarize themselves with the location of toilets relative to the location and position of the patients. Hand washing equipment must be available before entering into the facility, as well as within the facility all the time. We must ensure that the funding to operate these facilities are available so that everybody will perform their duty without the properties should have been properly secured by getting approval from authority that is having jurisdiction, ASHRAE. And conversion of the site to healthcare center must be very, very clear when the engineer is discussing with the clinicians. All the goals must be highly enumerated and make sure that the infrastructures are designed to meet the need of the client. We need to prepare a plan and specifications and must get approval from the authority that is having jurisdiction so that we don't have any issue before we start the project. One of the things we need to know are the number of COVID, the suspected patients and non-COVID patients, so that they can be grouped in one particular zone, and that of acute patients are to be grouped in another zone, because it is not required that you keep the two of them together in order not to create more problems. So the design of either way is peculiar to each of the group. I will please emphasize on this important that we need to consider liability when we are dealing with this type of urgency. We must not diverge from the healthcare guidelines so that we don't carry liability that is not ours. So this is very important. We should keep within the guidelines that are provided for the application of the ACF. American Society for Health Engineers made a statement, and it has said that during emergencies, it is important that activities be coordinated through the organization incident command system. This system is always adopted by the military to achieve their task, and this to show how urgent the implementation of this project is very, very important. So this has to be what management kind of thing we need to provide with organization structure on the project site. Staffing is very, very important. You must be sure that you have adequate staffs and support staffs 24/7. Supply chains has to be very, very critically evaluated. Equipment, PPE, infrastructure, including AC, HVAC systems, electrical power, and internet provision. On completion of the work, the operations system is now handed over to facility manager. At the end of the pandemic, the entire structure must be demobilized and disinfected before stacking them away. I will quickly give you a summary of challenges that you can face when we are converting an existing structure to alternate care facilities. Air quality consideration is very, very key, because sometimes when you go to an existing structure with an existing air conditioning, your challenges is very different, other than when you compare it with starting a new structure outside. So ability to assure ourselves that there won't be any cross-contamination between the patient rooms and the common areas and the staff areas. Also, we must ensure that the intake of fresh air and the discharge of exhaust air, contaminated exhaust air, are different apart for about 30 feet, and also the discharge is at 10 feet above the roof. And it's also recommended that before it is discharged, HEPA filter is installed on the line. This will help also to reduce contamination when the wind is taking the air around. The modification of the outdoor system is very, very important to be continuous operations, and control systems are properly designed to meet up with what is happening, dampers properly closed. At this present time, you need the services of air balancing experts to help to know what it is presently before you start to change, and after you have changed, and how you go back, returning the system back to its former position. The negative air pressure circulation is very key in the AIR. We must make sure that the difference in pressure between the clean area to the dirty area is about 25 Pascal, and this must be ensured and measured properly while you are coordinating the air change in the space and the pressure difference before the space is occupied and after the space is occupied by the patient. This must be properly monitored continuously to ensure that you don't have the virus moving from dirty to the clean area. Potential enhancement. When we have a larger bathroom and a larger exhaust fan, it is possible, it is recommended that this is reduced to meet our need. Also, temporary makeup air can also be supplied when the space air circulation is not adequate. If the ventilation air is ducted direct to the room, you can exhaust from the restroom or get a supplementary exhaust fan from that room. And if ventilation air is obtained through the corridor, the restroom, exhaust will result in a negative pressure relationship. Upgrades to power distribution must be required. Emergency power must be properly reviewed and make sure it can cope with the existing one. Either you provide a generator or any alternative power supply, and make sure the maintenance and operation people are very aware that no power is put off, so that you don't have the system equipment like HEPA filters being put off, in order not to create more complexity in the system. I'll quickly take you through example of alternate converted centers. Looking at this image, you will look at the building A, which is supposed to take 1,250 beds for low acute COVID. And the arrow showing building B, supposed to take 750 beds for medium acute COVID. And this particular building and the patient will require oxygen and ventilators with adequate HEPA exhaust. the building C, we accommodate 1,000 beds for low acute COVID. Screening and triage area near emergency departments are shown here as how the people are starting to construct and the finishing of the site when it is finished. The treatment bay, pressurized by the airflow for the patient, is on the right. Screening triage area near the emergency department parking garages are converted into emergency to alternative care facilities as indicated with the plan on the right and implementation on the left. Auditorium at hospital post-acute care center with all the facilities put in place within the shortest possible time. Similar thing is here for post-acute on the right. You can see the amount of boards that is being created for patients in a facility of like a convention center or sports center. All said and done, safety is very key and it's very priority in everything that is happening in the alternative care facility. Patients and caregivers must be protected, and everybody in the building must be protected against fire and smoke. And this is very key. For this reason, NFPA has created a lot of revisions to accommodate coronavirus, and this has to be followed. Looking at the code and standards on safety codes, we see all the codes that are enumerated that must be followed. The Life Safety Code 101, 98 standard for installation of HVAC system, 99 healthcare facility code, 110 emergency power system, and COVID-19 resources give that NFPA.gov against coronavirus is also special. And looking at the standards and guidelines provided by ASHRAE, we can see 170 ventilation of healthcare facilities, 62.1 for indoor air quality, position document as enumerated upstairs, and for the airborne infection disease, CDC guidelines and ASHRAE recommendations for all that. These are the list of resources that can help us to be more familiar with these problems of alternative care sites or facilities. I will employ you to go through them and try to see how this can help us to get prepared for these services we need to render to our community at this time of need. Takeaway for you is we have told you what we want to do, and we have done what we said we are going to do, and we are appealing to you that we as engineers, HVAC engineers at present time need to prepare ourselves at this time for the need to prepare alternate care facilities, which is the key thing that is going to be a challenge to all professions to meet the demand at a very shortest possible time. Sometimes most of these projects are delivered in days, sometimes they're delivered in short weeks of 2 weeks, maximum 3 weeks. And the best thing now is to start familiarizing ourselves with those documents I've shown to you and other guidelines and codes, standards that have been provided by the society and NFPA. With this, I put an end to this presentation and hand over to the moderator. Thank you for listening to this short presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Badru. That was very insightful. We already, in fact, we have a few questions which will be taken at the end of the session. Right now, we would quickly go to Engineer Marcos Oshindero, who will be sharing his presentation with us. Engineer Marcus, over to you. Thank you, sir. Okay, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much, Engineer Badru, for the efforts. Good day, viewers. Thank you for attending this webinar. I'm standing on the same protocols of my predecessor. I am presenting the practical installation of an isolation treatment facility, which was just completed within the last few days. I'm verifying all procedures mentioned by Engineer Badru. Thank you. The strategies employed in carrying out this isolation center involves discussion with the medical HVAC circuits and the administrators and facilitators of the project on where lies the cutoff point between sophistication, cost, and effectiveness. So we decided to make it simple. The HVAC system is meant to protect the healthcare workers by making sure that their life is secured, even though they are working with patients that are already infected, and reduce exposure when handling patients' discharge contaminants during their procedures. The airborne infections isolation rooms are treated with appropriately sized HEPA filtering machines. In our case, we decided to make it simple and making sure that the volunteer workers all know that the risk involved is covered. So we have set goals. The set goals is we discuss with the clinicians what to do, what to handle, and the risk involved. We establish minimum standards, and we defined key areas and designated rooms and suites. We drafted a procedure for them to make sure that they live in a safe environment, and make sure that all the workers are conversant with the floor plan. The methodology employed is based on equal possibilities for both genders. So we have the feminine and the masculine sections, in which we have the acute patients treatment rooms, which is the airborne infections isolation rooms, basically designated as ICUs. We had 10 of them, 5 on the feminine side and 5 on the masculine side. Then we have 64 temporary beds in 4 pods of 16 beds each, basically to handle people with mild cases and those that have tested positive to COVID-19. And there is large surge capacity overflow ward, which is kept for future overflow when the capacity of the beds are fully taken. Then the health workers are actually trained to know that every other area are not fully ASHRAE rooms, so they have to be very careful in handling. We employed the use of HEPA filtering machine within the ICU rooms. We made sure that the workers are trained never to turn off the HEPA filtering machine. As the facility is starting, the HEPA filtering machines are switched on and they're never turned off all through the life of the isolation center. Then we created entrance vestibules with doors to make sure that we had segregation between the ICU rooms and other areas, treating them as ASHRAE rooms. When the desirable is not available, the available becomes desirable. And as such, we dedicated high flow recirculating units for this project because the long lead time of manufacturing sophisticated units to handle each area is not there right now. So the clinicians are trained to defog these units at regular intervals. This is the floor plan of the isolation center. So I'll just navigate with my key. This is the main entrance, and we have the ICU room. At the main entrance, it's like I mentioned earlier, is divided into two. The left side being the masculine area and the right side being the feminine area. So you can rightly see the ICU rooms having 5 beds. You see the pods. Each of the pods has 16 beds within it. We have pod A, pod B, C, and D. And at the end of each wing, there is the overflow area for large surge when the capacity of the isolation center is almost exhausted. Then next, this is a floor plan of this is a 3D view, a side 3D view of the isolation center at the entrance side. And as you can see, when you enter into the isolation center, you're first met with a registry where you make sure that everything is. And this is a sample, and below you see the photograph of each of the nursing station. This should be pod B. That's the entrance into the pod where you have the second masculine 16-bed pod. Now, there's been a lot of discussion on the issue of sophistication, what kind of equipment should be used. But for emergency purposes, it's like I earlier mentioned, is very, very tough for you to come up with dedicated units within a very short time frame. So the idea we have employed in this is to weigh the cost, weigh the time. What is the possibility? It's almost not possible. Then treat what is available as what is to be used. So in so doing, concerns of medical practitioners, HVAC practitioners has been on how do we ensure that there's no contact transfer with the air conditioner aiding it from one person to the other, especially with the document Engineer Badu presented earlier, where ASHRAE made it clear that the way we run the air conditioning system shows the clarity between whether it's airborne or not. If you run the air conditioning system in which the draft is very high, then you can almost classify the infection as being airborne. So for this reason, the floor standing units are placed on very high pedestals to make sure that they discharge into the very high level of the hull, so that the drift is going to be minimal, almost negligible. We carried out various researches measuring airflow at the final discharge point to make sure that the units are discharging into the topmost space. This is the ICU room. You can see the 5 liner beds, and you can see the HEPA filtering machine in the ICU room. You also have bed screens in between the patients to ensure less cross-ventilation, cross-contamination between the patients. And the medical gas supply is such that there's always more than enough available standby for supplying the patients within the ICU rooms. There are dedicated portable medical oxygen for the mild patients, the port area where we have the 64 beds. You can see is a flow meter for setting and testing that the oxygen is flowing within the ICU room. Then the power supply system. There are 2 dedicated generators to serve these facilities. And we have a day tank, and we have reservoir, which stocks like a week-long diesel for operating the generators. And by the side, there's another standby generator for operating the peripherals. Should both of them have issues? Of course, that is almost impossible with the design. The plumbing system, we made sure that they are contactless plumbing features. They have sensors. These are at the back house facilities, while these within the hall for washing hands and dispensing, they are within the facility. You can see the pedestal for operating these valves. This is just to make sure that there is no transmission between one person and another. We thank the YPO for getting ASHRAE Nigerian chapter involved in this project, and we really appreciate their effort in providing this facility for the country, and especially for Lagos State. It's been a wonderful time working with them. They are just the best. And that ends my presentation. Thank you for watching, and I will be waiting for your questions and answer sessions. Please feel free to get your questions across to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Engineer Marcus. And it was also very special. So we already have some questions. We have some questions for Engineer Balaji, and we have some for you. And in the next 15 minutes thereabouts, we'll quickly take the question. So, Engineer Balaji, over to you, sir. You have some of the questions.
Can you please repeat the question, please? I'm not hearing at all. I'm not hearing you.
Engineer Balaji, can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you now.
Okay, very well. So the first question says that as per ASHRAE, are there any differences? Are there any differences between the ventilation requirement for ACF AIR and an operating theater in a hospital? If yes, what are the differences?
Yeah, the healthcare facilities, they move differently. The air change for the AIR in the alternate care center is designed to meet 12 air change, while in the operating theater, you are supposed to design to meet 20 air change. So the major difference is about the air change and the rate of clarity. So that's the major change. One is 12, the other one is 20.
Okay, very well. Thank you, sir. So the next question to you, Engineer Badru, says, good day. I just want to confirm the pressure differential required. I think you just answered that. But he's saying, you mentioned 25 pascals. Is this correct, or you mean 2.5 pascals?
2.5 pascal. It's 2.5 pascal.
Very well. Thank you. The next question to you, he said, in the event of modular isolation facilities, where one modular unit houses one patient only, is it acceptable to use a unitary unit, such as the mid-wall split, for the air conditioning purposes? Then he said, will this spread the disease further due to recirculation within the room?
Yeah, as I've said, you need to know the type of patient you are putting in those modular units. Are they non-acute or are they acute? If it is non-acute, you can still live with that type of units for the period. I think you are keeping them together. If it is acute, you are not, by standards, not supposed to have a split unit. But if you cannot help it, I know you cannot help it. You need to provide with RRU. Then you need to provide inside that space an HEPA filters machine that can help in the pressure of the space, to pressurize the space, as well as taking the contaminated air directly outside of the space. So it's important that you be able to segregate whether it is non-acute or it is acute.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Badru. Two more questions for you, then we'll go to Engineer Marcos's questions. So the next question is saying, can we recirculate the air with installing duct-mounted UVGI system?
UVGI is not a filtering system, it's just a supplementary appliance. So if you really want to recirculate, you need HEPA filter. You are not using the UGVI as a HEPA filter. There are two different subjects, but your UVGI can supplement your HEPA filter.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Badru. Engineer Marcos also wants to add to that, so I would let him do that. Engineer Marcos.
Thank you so much, Brian. The UVGI system can actually undo some, because the way it works is the UVGI system breaks the ultraviolet rays within 220 to 280 nanometers wavelength, breaks the nuclei of the infection. It attacks the droplets. But if you don't verify the wavelength, 265, if I remember correctly, 265 nanometer being the exact wavelength where that is most effective. So if you have UVGI systems that are not really certified, because we've seen different kind of UVGI systems coming into the country, if they are not certified and you cannot verify the wavelength, you cannot be totally sure it's doing the same thing. Or if you verify that the wavelength is between 220 nanometers and 280 nanometers, it should actually disinfect. It should disinfect. But coverage is another thing. How are you sure that if you have them within the ducts, it covers the whole amount of air passing through the ducts? That's the main thing about UVGI system. So verification is involved at all levels for one to be able to completely recommend a proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Marcos. So I will take the next question for Engineer Marcos now. He says, is HEPA filtration needed for toilet exhaust? If it is, if it is far away from any air intake grill or louver. If so, please explain why. He's saying that is HEPA filtration needed for toilet exhaust if it is far away from any air intake grill or louver? If so, explain why.
Trend is even the waste that is passed from what the medical guys call the vial, the waste could actually lead to aerosol generation when flushing. But the extent to which this, like I mentioned in my presentation, sophistication and cost, the extent to which you want to put HEPA filtration in a toilet depends on what's available for you. If the cost can handle it, we're trying to work on a safe environment. You can go ahead and have HEPA filters there. But for me, if it's far away from the exhaust, I'll just make sure that I direct the waste. You have to incinerate it. Whatever waste is coming out of a COVID center has to be incinerated or trapped. So you might have to use a HEPA filter. But it's a cost thing. What we have done in this case is to actually train our clinicians and the healthcare workers that you, even when cleaning the toilets, you make sure that the lids are completely closed, because some facts are coming out from medical scientists that even effluents for the patients could still have SARS-2 So we train the technicians. You must make sure that you don't, when the loo is used, it must be sealed, and you don't go there immediately somebody finish using it. It's just being careful. Like Engineer Badu said, we're still studying COVID-19. A lot of revelations are yet to come. No one has all the details of, but we're just being careful to make sure that contamination is limited to a. What's the second question? I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you, Engineer Marcos. He also asked for you to explain the reason why, which you did already. Thank you, sir. I want to take next question for Engineer Badru. So someone is asking, he says, can you share your views on the need for computational fluid dynamics simulation, CFD simulation of isolation rooms to see the airflow pattern and contamination tracking? Are there any standards that demand such a study? Engineer Badru.
Yes, people have carried out a lot of studies. If you are able to go to ASHRAE journal, there's a particular journal that treated the CFD simulation, and they found out that when you're about to locate your return in the room, it has to be at low level at the end of the bed of the patient. And when you are discharging into the room, the air should flow through the caretaker. The clean air should flow through the caregiver and return through the bed of the patient. But on both sides of the bed, you're supposed to have return air grills 200 above the floor, and it should be about 1 meter high so that you can cover the bed at that side. By the time you take the CFD in that room, you find that the area is very well protected against the caregiver and across the bed of the patient. So okay. I would suggest that we check on the ASHRAE journal. There have been a lot of discussion on that.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Because of our time, I'm just going to take 2 more questions. One for Engineer Marcos and one for Engineer Badru, and I will just allow you to give us your 1 minute each wrapping up statement so that we can gradually draw the curtain. So there is a question here for Engineer Marcos. The person is asking, what are the safety precautions for the maintenance engineer or technicians? Then he's also saying, what's the frequency of maintenance of the HEPA filters? And then thirdly, he says, what's disinfectants advice for cleaning filters for times like this? There are 3 in 1 question. I'll go right again. He's saying, what are the safety precautions for the maintenance engineers? Do you want to take that first? He said, what are the safety precautions for the maintenance engineer?
Like you
already said, right? The safety precautions for we have already said that they cannot.
Right.
Yes.
We already said that the HEPA filter but during sections, acute patients using the AIR rooms have been treated and moved into lesser places where the particles are from their body or they have been treated locally. The filtering machine cannot be removed immediately.
There are scale filters available for the HEPA filtering machine? And that one answer the second question.
There are scale filters available for the HEPA filtering machine. And that's what answer the frequency you mentioned.
Just like normal
HEPA filtering machine have set pressures, and just like normal filtration and pressure differential, when it's getting clogged, the alarm will show you that it is clogged. At that stage, you actually have to remove the HEPA filtering machine. But before removing it from the room, you have to get a replacement in the room working. You remove the HEPA filtering machine from the room to beyond the space center, the back house, then properly kitted, you dispose and incinerate the filters. They are not meant to be just disposed. You dispose them in disposable bags, plug them together, and find a way of incinerating them. Beyond reach in isolation basis. That is my take on the HEPA filtration machine service.
He was asking what he said. What do you recommend for cleaning? What disinfectants do you advise for cleaning the filters in times like this?
They will not be washed. They will not be cleaned. They will not be. They have to be incinerated, disposed completely, without creating any havoc or hazard for anyone.
Thank you, sir. Final question to Engineer Badru as we wrap up. So this person is asking, he said, for the common areas in hospitals, if we install the UV light inside the return ducts of the AHU, will it help for clean air?
Yeah, it could help. I mean, it could help. But most importantly, the UVG lights, as I've said, is supplementary. Basically, if you want proper indoor air quality conditions, it is advisable that you install an HEPA filter to recirculate into the space.
Okay, sir. Thank you. I just got a nudge from the president that because there are so many other questions that I should just take one or two. So I will just take one or two other questions. Then, if you have questions or your questions have not been attended to, you could send your questions to ashraenigeria@gmail.com. ashraenigeria@gmail.com. So let me just take the one or two questions. Is the oxygen supplied to the isolation space or individual patients? Engineer Marcus is saying, is the oxygen, is it supplied to the isolation space or to individual patients?
The oxygen is actually piped the same way we do our water piping. It is supplied to the ICUs via piping, and each of the patients has their outlet, which is regulated. But the major thing is you make sure that you keep the pressure within the oxygen line in 3.5 to 4 bar. The medical doctors, practitioners know how to regulate and feed, because the oxygen feeding, they are the best in it. There's the feeding which goes directly into the lungs when you cannot breathe very well. Is piped the same way piped, and there is outlet to each of the patients. Single pipe feed under pressure, but the terminals are locked. So at each terminal, you open it to verify the flow and then feed the patient. That is the way it's done. It's not just discharged into the space. It goes directly on each patient according to their needs, because each of these patients have different needs.
Thank you, Engineer Marcos. And final question now to Engineer Badru. Engineer Badru, someone is asking, he says, I think this person is asking the question to both Engineer Marcos and Engineer Badru, so but I'll allow Engineer Badru to give his thoughts. So he said, since it has been established that the infected patient of COVID-19 can spread infection after toilet use, is there any precautionary measure like sanitization or disinfecting the toilet after use by the infected patient? Engineer Badru, now we can hear you. Your mic was muted before.
Okay. Thank you, Ibrahim. Time to time, the housekeeping of the facilities are kept under public health conditions, and this must be met in accordance with requirements of the space by the policies and the specifications of the public health. Because COVID-19 is a different kind of virus, that's very important to be cautious about cleaning. And the people that does that have to be in their PPE, and they will be able to provide that services. So they must put on the PPE to protect themselves and put proper disinfections on the sanitary equipment and the environment. It is important to follow the public health policy.
Okay, thank you so much, Engineer Badru and Engineer Marcos. We want to appreciate your time and appreciate the efforts that you have put into this session. So we'd just like to hear, I'll just give both of you 1 minute each so that you can just wrap up the presentation from your end, and then we'll call it a day. Thank you, sir. Engineer Badru first.
Yeah, thank you, Ibrahim. My admonition to all the professionals is start to team up and form a consortium from now on and start familiarizing themselves with all that is necessary in terms of different challenges in each of these structures that can be converted into alternate care facility.
Thank you, sir. Engineer Marcos, now, please.
Thank you very much, Brian. My word to everyone.
Marcos, we can't hear you.
COVID-19 is a pandemic that transcends everyone's.
Engineer Marcos, can you go again? Your mic was now we can hear you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you so much, Engineer Badru. My word to every one of us is COVID-19 actually beats everyone's imagination. Scientists are working day and night to reveal more information. And technicians are working to spare their lives and make sure that they provide help to the victims. In all this, it has beat everyone's imagination. No single country has all the technology to solve this. So I believe, I just want to use the opportunity to tell everyone that is working hard to make sure that this pandemic is just got out of sight within a short time. And we really appreciate all of you, health workers that are sacrificing their lives, the philanthropists that are investing so much to support our governments, especially the YPO Lagos that have put up so much millions of dollars to make sure that this project is executed. And thank our membership of ASHRAE, who has been very, very supportive at all times, especially the POG members. And I wish to just say, wish you all stay safe. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Engineer Marcos. And then this will bring us to the end of the presentation and the webinar for today. If you have other questions, if you have other concerns, you can relate to us if you check the chat session, you will see I dropped 2 email addresses. One is info@ashraenigeria.org, and the other is ASHRAE Nigeria chapter @gmail.com. info@ashraenigeria.org and ASHRAE Nigeria chapter @gmail.com. We thank you all for your time and we wish you a very good time. Thank you.